Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have Coach Josh Runda with us, the defensive coordinator at Bluffton University. Coach, how you doing?
Good, Coach Bandstra. We're coming full circle on this thing, man. Just over a year ago, we shot the first video, and so it's good to be back. Glad to see the different things that you've gotten in the works and being able to keep this platform going.
Yeah, I don't even actually, that bugs me now. I should have looked that up. When was the actual first time? 'Cause, I mean, we've talked a bunch of times since. Okay, so it was March. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. It was March 25th. Was when we filmed the three high safety stuff the first time, and then you filmed the second video for us. Oh God, what was that? November, December? Was that right?
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. And then you were. I mean, you've been around since then. I mean, you spoke at our state clinic, Michigan State Clinic, correct? Am I missing anything?
Some other podcasts. To be honest, man, I really owe all those opportunities to you, and I know I've said that to you before, but that three high safety video, this morning I actually got an email from a coach that was reaching out and said he had just watched the video, so it's given me a bunch of opportunities to be able to connect with different coaches across the country and given me some different opportunities. So I know I've told you before, but I definitely appreciate what you've done for me and being able to continue to grow my network in this profession.
No problem, Coach. I think because I occasionally skim this stuff. You're one of four videos that gets a solid 30 to 60 views every week. It never because it shows you all that, and obviously anything new comes out gets views that week. But you'll see you, Spencer Leno's linebacker video, John Puggett's Rip Liz video, and then Cameron Cox down in Texas, his power spread stuff. Those are the four videos that just every week. Oh, here's another 30 to 60. But yeah, and like I said, most people have checked out your base three high safety one, and I know some people are starting to find the second one when we talk a little more run fits. So coaches, those links will be down below for those if you guys want to check those out. If you haven't yet, which I don't think it's very many coaches for the first one at this point. But I mean, how first before we get started on talking game planning and 3x1 defensive coverage today, I mean, how did spring ball for you go? I mean, obviously you guys got moved to the spring, like a lot of the D3s did. So how'd all that work out for y'all?
Yeah, it was good. It was a unique season to say the least. And so we actually had the opportunity. We were scheduled to play two games in the fall, and then our conference moved our conference schedule to the spring. So we ended up playing one of two games in the fall time, which was good. Got a lot of football in. Was really good for our young guys. Had a short break. Came back. Started up in February for spring football. So us guys in Ohio know what that football is like. I will tell you this, I'm pretty proud of this because being I'll say a younger coach or youngest coach, I have always been jealous of the older coaches in the profession that will talk about as a young coach how they had to go out and paint the football fields and put the lines down and do all of these different things. As the game has moved to a lot of turf type fields, some of us guys that got into the profession post having to paint never had to go out and paint the field. So this spring was my I guess initiation into the coaching profession. I didn't have to paint the field, but we did hand shovel part of the football field, and I also learned how to drive a snow plow on the field and a snow blower on the field. So I'm waiting for a staff or to talk with somebody and they start talking about paint lines, because I'm going to talk about the 10 inches of snow that we had to move from the football field before practice one.
Yeah. Northern Ohio winters are interesting. You come down here, it's hit or miss. Down in Central Ohio, you hit true Northern Ohio, it's especially, I mean, the closer you get to the lakes and the border with Michigan, it just starts pancaking on. So that is funny. I mean, I will say this. I mean, my first couple years, I had to help hand paint, and do all that lovely stuff. Actually, I have several spots. So, I mean, at this point, I just pray for turf. I mean, somebody can call me soft all they want. I don't really care. But like, give me turf. Like I've done the line painting. We're good. That's yeah. That's I
Hey, after this spring, I don't need to do any more field maintenance, paint, snow removal. I'm good. I got my fix, but it feels good to finally be able to say that I did do some of that stuff, and I at least have a rebuttal now when some of the old timers talk about their troubles and having to paint the field. So outside of that, the spring went well. At the end of the day, our guys got to play football.
yeah.
We played 8 games total, which I thought was great for our seniors. Trying to get as close to 10 games, which would be a normal season for us, as we could get. And those guys got, 8 opportunities to play. Obviously, at our level, even with the blanket waiver stuff, you're not always going to get the kids that can afford to come back for that extra year, that extra season. So we wanted to do right by our seniors and give those guys as many opportunities as we could. So at the end of the day, we got to play football, and that was good. Finished 4-4, which was an improvement on the last 2 years, and continuing to try to build it and go in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of your point there, like I've talked to a couple D2, D3 guys, like they have a bunch of guys that could come back for that extra year, but a lot of them are like, I got a job pending already. Like I got my degree. Some of them have master's degree because they busted their butts already, and they got paid jobs coming up, and you're like, I get it. Like especially some of these schools, and we've talked about it before. Like I mean, you're starting off with 6-figure salaries after college because you got like an engineering degree or some other high in demand degree from a highly accredited school, or you're in a program. And I get it, like I really do. So
Yep. You're
um,
taking that. You're taking 100,000 over another year in school. Although, what I don't know what the price for either one of us would be to go back for one more year of college.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's. I will say this: you were probably more athletic. Actually, not probably. You were more athletic than me, so a little different experiences there. Um, but so let's kind of get into it in terms of obviously we'll talk 3x1 and game planning and um, first like how much. I mean, every level is different on what you see. How much 3x1 trips do you actually see in a given week? Obviously, college is mostly spread at this point, so forth. You don't see nearly as much triple or wing T as we do. Um, but like how and also with that trips, are you seeing a lot more formation to the boundary or formation to the field?
Yeah, we still see some different offenses week in and week out. Our conference has got some copycat, a little bit of copycat in it, in the sense of if you see one thing one week and somebody has some success on you, you're probably going to see it from the team that you play in the next week. But we see some different variations of 3x1, just in the sense of 10 personnel. We see some 11 personnel stuff, whether that's the tight end attached in the Y off position, or what we would call just in the flex position. So we're seeing a decent amount of that. I mean, I would say at least every week. There was a team that we faced this year that went in every snap that we broke down, they were 10 personnel, and literally they were only in 2x2 open or 3x1 open, and that was all they shown in a 4-game breakdown that we did for them. So we see a decent amount of it. We get a little bit of the formation into the boundary stuff. We see it. We see true 3x1 out of the open sets. We see it more to the field, but you're certainly starting to get some formation into. And I think what fronts we're showing and what we're doing probably dictates some of that as well, as far as what teams like and what they feel as they're looking and breaking us down defensively. What how we're aligned into some different things and what they like. So week in and week out basis, but I'd say we see 3x1. It's fair to say we see it at least one snap every week,
Okay.
but usually multiple.
Now, I mean, one of the main reasons I asked that formation and boundary part, we and you talked Twitter beforehand and all the stuff that comes with the coaching world and Twitter. But I see all the time, like especially my buddy Alex Kirby. He loves looking at that stuff and formations and the boundary. I know that's becoming a lot more popular, especially at the Division 1 level. Okay, not as applicable down here just because where our hashes are. Um, but what are you mostly seeing out of those trip sets conceptually wise? How are people? I mean, obviously everybody attacks everybody a little differently, but just from a broad scouting standpoint, before we kind of get in the actual gameplay and stuff, what are you seeing a lot of teams do? Is it a lot of screen oriented? Is it sprint out? What I mean, how are people utilizing their trips? Are they just mostly focusing on the single guy? What are you kind of seeing overall, especially in your league?
Yeah. First off, I follow Coach Kirby on Twitter, so I would appreciate it if he quit retweeting all of the funky formations that he continues to tweet out there for all of these offensive guys, as if there's not enough to defend already. But to answer your question, we see a decent amount of smoke screen or hitch screen, whatever you want to call it, into the boundary side. I think a lot of it's dictated off of how you're aligning to formation into. If you don't have a defender that's apexing or at least playing outside of the box still to the field, to the single receiver side, and offenses know, they can get the easy throw on the slant to the single receiver to the wide side of the field, then obviously they're going to take advantage of some of that stuff as well. So I think how you get attacked in it really is going to be dependent off how you're aligning to it. For us, we see majority of the time because we want to fit the run first, and we won't always stretch our linebackers into formation, into the boundary. We won't always stretch that box linebacker out, and so we'll see a lot of hitch screen because of the numbers that we're giving them to the outside. And at other times we'll roll down or we will stretch that backer and maybe give potentially a little bit of a different look. But for me, formation into the boundary, if they're going to get to throwing the ball downfield, then eventually, those three receivers, they got to spread back out to the field. And so whether it starts as formation into the boundary or it starts 3-by-1 to the wide side of the field, when the picture finishes in true drop back pass, right, the football field is still 53 and a half yards wide. And so they're still going to use that spacing to eventually get to it. It's what are they seeing pre-snap? How are you aligning to it? And what do they feel good about? But the drop back out of the formation stuff into, I'd rather defend that in all honesty than maybe some of the smoke screen stuff and things like that.
Okay. Now, where do you start, like game planning wise, with that? I mean, because obviously you go see a handful of times each week, some more on others team, and obviously they'll attack you a little different. A good offense coordinator will attack you a little differently than they did the week before. They may or may not show you something. So where do you start? How much is it looking at what they've done so far, looking at the past, what's worked, what hasn't? Where do you start there?
Yeah, it starts with the data breakdown. And so being at a small Division 3 college, right, all of our coaches are involved in data breakdown. So myself, I've got responsibilities. Our DB's guy has responsibilities. We've got one GA on our side of the ball, and so he does some of the breakdown as well. But just making sure that all of the data is correct as far as the formations go, the personnel goes, everything that we're putting in there. I mean, I learned that from my time at UIndy, right? What you're looking at is no good if your data entry's no good. So we've got to make sure that everything that we're putting in, we use Huddle, everything we're putting in there is good and it's correct in what we're getting, especially out of the personnel. And then when you look at the pass game stuff formationally for us, and we do the same thing with the run game, we're going to write it all out by hand. And that may be a little old school, I guess, in a sense, but I want to be able to look at and have in hand by formation what pass concepts we are getting from the offense.
Okay.
And so it gives me a good idea to be able to look through that and have each formation broken down and be able to say, hey, when we get this 3-by-1 look, right, here are the route concepts that we're getting. And if there's an outlier within that, why is that outlier there? And so all of those routes are attached to down at the bottom. They've got a number. And so I believe it's a 9-box system. And so each box is, relative to a number down at the bottom. And with that number, every time that route combination is ran, it's going to be down at the bottom marked the game, the down and distance, and the play number that play took place, so that if there is an outlier, right, we can go back and watch it, or we can say, hey, why did they like this, as far as this, or they only ran this route concept once, right? They only ran 4 verticals one time. Well, why was that? Was it the end of the half? Was it the end of the game? Was it a coverage that they got that they liked? And so it starts with looking at all of those things to really start to build what we want to do and how we want to defend those formations. And so we call our formations, they're a little funky, to be honest. It's probably one of the things my assistants, when they first, or our assistants at Bluffton, when they first learn what we're doing defensively, the thing they struggle the most with is our learning the offensive formations, how we call them defensively. Because I want a common language, and I want to be able to say the formation, but also know the personnel built into the formation. And so nowadays, you're getting teams that are giving you 10 personnel formations out of 11 personnel. Well,
Yeah.
Those are two different truly formations, and what you're going to get out of them are going to be more than likely different concepts, or what they want to do tendency wise is probably going to be different. So for us, all of our trip sets are going to start with T, all of our double sets are going to start with D, and then they're going to have a name attached to it. So 3x1 open out of 10 personnel is Texas for us, whereas 3x1 with an attached tight end is Toledo. And so if you were to take Toledo and you flex that tight end out, right, it looks like Texas, but it's 11 personnel. And so we know that we're going to get some different looks out of it. So now that becomes Toledo flex within the language that we're using defensively.
Now,
so
how do you incorporate, I'm assuming based off what that verbiage you just gave me, the backfield is completely separate in a category, and how you look at that every week.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're looking at, on paper, we're looking at route concepts.
Okay.
Because coverage wise, I want to make sure that we're going to be sound in the coverage aspect. Now, backfield set to me is going to give you more tendency. And so we can attack some of those tendencies with the backfield set. But when we're looking at overall coverage wise, what we're going to do, we don't necessarily always tie in the backfield set, but that's going to be a part of the breakdown in a separate category. And we go a plus minus system, and then A, B, C as far as alignment goes.
All right. Now, I'm going to keep just attacking the game planning part. How much does your plan alter based off the mobile ability of that quarterback?
Yeah, it'll take us out of some stuff. I mean, the best player in our conference was a freshman quarterback at Mount St. Joe, and Coach Coral, he does a great job with their offense, and they did a lot of quarterback run this year out of some different sets, and so I think it limits you coverage-wise as far as what you can do. I'm a big believer in being a +1 box, and so we got to make sure that we can fit the run first and foremost, and then say, hey, what coverage can we do based off of being able to fit the run plays that the offense is running. And so when teams have a mobile quarterback, or they just want to go, communist football and just run the quarterback, right? Take away the extra numbers that you created with the +1 box stuff. Then it limits some of the things you can do. We've gotten into some spy concept. I think our 3 high safety stuff helps us out because, we do have an extra safety on the field. And so we can do some different things and be able to have, a guy that can run well and match up with most quarterbacks. We can drop him down and not have to change a whole bunch of what we're doing coverage wise as far as that stuff goes. But I certainly think it limits you when they've got a quarterback and especially one that can run. The other part of it is if they're going to continue to run that guy, he's going to take some shots. And so hopefully, you can start to wear that guy down as well because they don't want to run him every play. Hopefully not.
Now, I want to go back to, you talked about when you were breaking down film and looking at why they ran certain concepts. So how much do you break down the defenses they are seeing and the coverages or the alignments and comparing it to what you do?
Yeah, As far as breaking down the actual coverages, at this point, I think we have a pretty good feel for what teams are similar in structure to us defensively, at least when we're doing the conference breakdown stuff. So we can say and look through and say, hey, they've played so-and-so, they've played so-and-so, and they played, all right, well, those teams do a lot of things that are similar to what we're doing. Let's incorporate those games into our breakdowns. A team that's going to be, we're not a big cover one team, so a team that's going to run a lot of cover one, right? We're probably not going to incorporate those guys in the breakdown because, right, offensively, now you're going to get into some rub routes. You might get into more bunch sets than you traditionally would. You're going to do some things to give yourself some man beaters. And so for us, that doesn't match necessarily what we're trying to do on defense. So we're looking at the teams that, defensively, at least from a concept standpoint, when we turn them on tape, they look similar in structure and they look similar in what they're doing coverage-wise to what we're doing. And so there's a couple of teams in our conference, especially four-man stuff, that does quite a bit of the same, at least variations of what we're doing. And I think that helps as far as the breakdown side of it goes.
Okay. And then how much is your, in terms of game planning, throughout the week, how much does that alter? Or really, I mean, most coaches, your options shrink as you go throughout the week. Some coaches will add here and there based off what they're seeing in practice. But how much, from where you start after you got your game plan down, how much does it shrink by Saturday?
Yeah. So it originally starts for us. We've got a big, in our defensive staff room, a big whiteboard. And so on that day one of game planning, we will go through and we'll write up the down and distances based off of personnel groupings. And so let's just say 1st and 10, for example, 1st and 10 out of 10 personnel, we're going to put those clips, on the projector and watch through and see what they're trying to do out of the, on those downs and distances, out of those personnel groupings. And then we look at it from a defensive standpoint and say, hey, what do we like to what they're trying to do out of these sets during this down and distance, out of that personnel. And we'll start to really build our call sheet on that first day of game planning. For us, the big game planning day is Monday. And so we'll really start to build the call sheet there. And then I really, from a scripting standpoint, luckily that whiteboard's right across from where my computer is. So I can look up at that and say, hey, they like to run this on 1st and 10. So we'll put we'll script our 1st and 10 plays in. And then I can look up right at the whiteboard and say, hey, all right, it's 10 personnel. It's 1st and 10. We like this call against it. And so I'm not necessarily scripting for success. I'm scripting to see, hey, we said that we like this call out of this down and distance. All right, here's a play that they ran on that down and distance. Does that call for us defensively, is that going to mesh up well with what they're trying to do? And so as we go with that throughout the week, you come in, you watch film, and you say, hey, I thought that was going to be a good play call, but, we got this, and that's not a great look for us. And so that we erase it or cross it off the board or say, hey, what can we do to tweak this call a little bit to be able to make it work? So it's fluid and it's constantly building. But I think one of the nice parts is at the end of the week, our call sheet is right there on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And so now it's just putting that into actual paper form because we've gone about building it all week long.
Now, do you have like a preference on how you attack on trips or like on 3rd down? Because like I'll use an example. Like I've texted a little bit back and forth with Jim Knowles at Oklahoma State, trying to get him on, and he is well known for being extremely aggressive on 3rd down, like obscenely. That's who he is, and every coach has got their identity. Like I mean, you listen to like Coach Vass, and we talked about it in our podcast. There's really like 3 big schools of thought in defense. There's the TCU split field 4-2-5 coverage teams. There's the Nick Saban Rip Liz match, and then there's the Nate Woody 3-4 defense, however you want to incorporate. Those are like the big three from what he was explaining to me, and he's much smarter than I am. So I was like, okay, but
He's
like,
much smarter than a lot of people.
yeah, yes, very so, and a lot of that's just because of the tremendous work ethic he has. So is there like any preference on how you or are you known for how you attack either trips or third down?
Yeah. So for us, third down, starting with third down, I would say that goes back to the breakdown portion of just saying, hey, offensively, at what down and distances are they doing what, and at what down and distances are they changing, right? Like, third and 1 to 2, are we expecting run? For most offenses, I would say yes. At third and 7 to 9, we're getting more drop back, but it's going to be to the stick. So what do we like on those calls? Third and long, maybe they get you on some screen stuff. Are they a big screen team or draw team? Because I think that takes you out of running some pressure stuff as far as that goes. So for us, it's figuring out what are they doing on third down, and really when are they changing offensively, right? And what those down and distances are, and then what are they trying to accomplish from those different changes as you look at it. And so we're not necessarily like a third and 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7+ team. We want to find out where do these guys change, do they become different, and how are they trying to attack you throughout the different field zones, and looking at it through that. We've been a big lineup, make teams make a mistake and drive the field on us. This year, we pressured a little bit more than we have in the past when we felt good through the breakdowns of having a good understanding of what we were going to get in some certain situational football and being able to get after it and attack it. And part of that's flow too. You got to play the flow of the game. How's your offense playing? Is it a chance in the game for you to be able to take a chance on third down defensively, or do you need to maybe stay a little bit more base because you're down 7 and you don't want to give up a big play if you do blitz? And so to me, all of that stuff kind of goes into it, and some of it'll change right as the flow of the game changes a little bit.
Now there's several things I want to kind of go back to, and you mentioned early on that you see a lot of screens, especially that hitch screen out of the 3x1 stuff. How much do you work? Whether it be, this can incorporate not only 3x1 but 2x2 and whatever. How much do you work fits, or how do you work fits? Because I know everybody's got a little bit different terminology for how they fit screens. A lot of it's fit the same way, but kind of like me and you talked before we came on. Some people just argue over semantics and terminology for no damn reason, and it's annoying. And people who are listening, by the time this comes out, people have probably forgotten, but they'll know. Those of you that remember will know what I'm referencing. But do you physically work that in practice? How to fit? Do you have like a fit period for it? Because that's why when I was DC that second year, that's what I worked on fitting that. So is that something that you focus on how to properly fit that so you can get good leverage?
Yes and no. I would say that full defense, I would say no. I would say it happens probably more so in our individual work.
Okay.
And so when you're looking at 3x1 and you're looking at some bubble screen or things like that, the big player for us becomes our Sam. And so looking at whether we're in our 3 high or we're in our 4-2-5 structure, that Sam more than likely is going to be aligned off of that number 2 receiver. And so when you're getting like the 3 bubble screen that you're getting to the field side, he's got to be a big butt press guy, and we're trying to force the ball back inside. And so we do a ton of that work with the Sam positionally. A lot of that stuff just becomes tackling in space, which I think gets picked up and coached and taught when we're working tackling circuits. And so I wouldn't say that we have necessarily like a screen fit period, but we're working a lot of those concepts to be able to fit the screen stuff throughout practice, just in a little bit of a different way. Now, the nice part is we've built our practice plan where we have 3 team sessions. And so we're getting a lot of reps. We're a big repetition team. We don't do a ton defensively. And so throughout the week, our guys are getting a lot of looks at the same play out of the same defense. And so to me, that's, where some of that practice repetition comes in it as well.
Now you mentioned there you don't do a ton. Do you find that simplicity allows? I mean, D3 obviously D3 is kind of like high school. I consider like NAI D2 D even D2. I mean, you're limited on who you have and in coaching pay and who you have coaching to and time. Like the schedules aren't coordinated as well as like, oh, let's move all these classes around to help the D1 sports. So,
we are limited staff wise. We are
yes.
limited in time, and we are limited in personnel. There's no doubt.
Oh yeah, no, it's a little, yeah. Oh no, now I remember. Okay, so do you find, especially at your level, simplicity allows your kids to play faster? Obviously, like there's some schools, and we've talked about this too, who do a lot, and there's a variety of reasons why they're able to do that. But do you find that because you're able to keep it simple, that your kids get to the ball better, and or is there some disadvantage to that at the same time?
Yeah, it probably goes both ways. I mean, I look at coaching as philosophy based, right? It's what do you believe in as a coach, and I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do things. For us, simplicity works best. It allows our kids, I think, to play fast. I think they play with less hesitation, and so anytime you can take away that hesitation, I think you can build confidence in the players. And it also, when you keep it simple and you teach in concepts, which we try to do a lot of, I think it makes your adjustments a lot easier too, to be able to, when they come off to the sideline, it doesn't look like we're putting in an entire new defense when we're making an adjustment. We're just, changing a concept, or we're changing a technique. Heck, it might be an alignment that we're changing, 3x1, for example, right? If you're getting a ton of 3-stick, well, let's take the Sam and let's put them inside of 3 rather than playing them at an apex between 2 and 3, or playing them 2 yards inside of 2. Let's change a simple thing like that, because it might be a team that you're playing where it's all pre-snap based. And so if you can just make a simple adjustment by adjusting, an alignment, or you can use a term that you already use and say, hey, we're going to apply this concept, but we're going to do it here. I think it allows our players, at least at Bluffton, to play fast, to play with confidence. And at the end of the day, we tell them, as coaches, it's our job to put you in position to be able to make plays, right? The players, at the end of the day, you're going to win or lose games on if they made those plays or not. Yeah. And so I don't want to feel as a coach that we put our guys in bad positions, or we did things that we didn't necessarily practice, and those were the things that got us beat. I want to feel good about, as a coaching staff, we put those guys in a position to be successful on the game field. Now, whether they executed, to their ability or not, that's going to change things. And it doesn't, I'm not trying to say, when we lose, it's all on the kids because they didn't make the play. Well, heck, why didn't they make the play, right? Yeah. Why didn't they make that tackle? Is there something that, as a staff, that now we could go and focus on and do a little bit better to help them continue to, as a lot of people say, right, add tools to their toolbox and all of these different things, as far as what can we do to improve them in that skill set. But I'm a firm believer in putting your players in position to make plays at the end of the day, right? And if they're in that position, you feel good about the fit, you've got the numbers, well, hopefully you've given them the tools to be able to make that play when the time comes.
Now, and I don't know how much of it you see off the top of my head, how much does motioning or trading to trips alter your game planning? Every school's a little different on how much they do. I've been on staffs where we motion and shift almost every play. And I've been on other staffs where we're going to line up in about 3 different formations all game, and we ain't motioning anybody. So, how much does that affect your game planning and what you're able to do?
We're formation based a lot of times, okay. And depending, obviously dependent on the call as well. But when you're looking at our base stuff, a lot of it's going to be formation based. So the biggest thing with motions and trades is you're adding another element of communication for the guys, and making sure recognition wise they are recognizing, they're seeing it, they're communicating across the board. And as long as they can do that, then, we feel good. Even if teams are trading and motioning a lot, we just got to make sure our guys are playing with confidence and being able to communicate what they're seeing, and then knowing, right, based off of that formation that they're motioning to, what the adjustment for us is going to be. And so we start every practice with a little things period. And so the first 10 minutes of our practice, we're on trash cans and we're giving them formations. We're calling a defense. They're lining up. They're making all the checks and adjustments. We're snapping the ball. They're jogging down the field, and then the next group's in. And so pre-practice, we're getting, 10 different formation looks. We're getting motions. We're getting those trades. We're getting different backfield sets, and we're getting all of that alignment and communication stuff, and getting a bunch of reps at it pre-practice.
Now, do you how many options for trips do you kind of try carrying into the game? And do you and you can tell me if you don't. I mean, coverage wise, do you have any particular preference on what you like? And obviously, that's going to vary depending on the opponent, because I might have to bracket one over here. I might have two, might be, yeah, all that stuff. There's I understand there's 18,000 variations you could do this, but do you have any like personal, like I feel really good about this?
Yeah, and I think it's probably changed, and a lot of it is going to depend. Sorry to say it, but a lot of it is going to depend on, to the three receiver side, right? Like, who is number one strong, who is number two strong, and who is number three strong,
Yeah.
right? On the backside, who is number one weak. And so for us, we've got truly three variations of cover three adjustments or checks. And then in those variations, we have two different ways that we can go about running them. So
Yeah.
you could say that we've got six. Our kids are really learning three. And then this goes back to like teaching in concepts, where most of our 3x1 adjustments, we're just saying, hey, we're playing two read, but we're playing two read to, 1 and 2, or we're playing two read to 2 and 3. Like,
Okay.
we're just changing who we're playing, the same style of coverage that we already play against it. And so the probably my favorite, I think some people call stubby, or 2-3 match, or however you want to call it, right? Where you're playing read off of 3 strong and 2 strong. You're manning up number one,
Okay.
and then you're playing some type of game on the backside to the single receiver side, because you still got the boundary safety that can push that way. I think that's the most flexible, especially in going back to your backfield set question earlier. If you're getting a team that goes 4 strong a lot, right? They're setting the back to the 3 strong receiver side. Then, in my opinion, that is the best answer as far as trips adjustments go. But again, it's going to be dependent on, like I said earlier, are they in Texas, which is true 3x1 open 10 personnel?
Yeah.
Are they in Toledo Flex? Are they in what we would call Toledo Flex 2, where now it's 11 personnel? It looks like a 3x1 open, but the tight end's in the 2 hole. Like, where do we like our matchup, and who do we like to match up on the number 3 receiver dictates a lot of what we're doing, because we could take, we're 3 high safety, so that middle safety we could match up on 3 vertical carry as a 3 vertical carry player. We could play read to 1 and 2 strong, and then on the backside we could still play a 2-for-1 game on the single risk side. But the coverage, if we're playing 11 personnel, we can play that same coverage out of our 4-2-5 stuff. But now the mic becomes a 3 vertical carry. It's still 2 read off of 1 and 2, and you can still play the 2-for-1 game on the backside to the single receiver side.
Well, you just answered 2 things for me. One, it tells me you've not seen the Steve Sarkisian Nike Clinic, because if you didn't get the memo, no one plays cover 3 anymore. And then 2, you're a TCU guy. It advances coverage orientation, because you just dropped a lot of the 2 read and the. Because I remember my first year I ran the 4-2-5, and I tested that out, the man on 1, read 3 for the 2 and 3. Yeah, exactly. No, I get you exactly. So that's funny.
And I I'm guilty, and I listen to Coach Vass's podcast quite a bit, as I've started to listen to yours quite a bit as well. And there's all of these things. I know you had Coach Alexander. Like when that guy talks, I mean, my mind looks like oh man,
Yeah.
I look like the GIF from Rain Man, where it's just like everything is all over the place because he and his language and everything that man is able to talk to. I've never met him personally, but he's obviously a very good football coach and well knowledged and well versed. So I'm trying to hopefully use some of these football terms with our kids. It's a much simpler language, I can promise you. But I'm trying to sound a little bit like I know what I'm talking about. So if any of these other guys are listening,
well, it helps that Cody GA for Phil Bennett too. I mean, it helps when you GA for somebody who's been around that long and knows what their stuff that well. That's gonna formulate how you do it. Like that's why I love power is because I've worked for a lot of coaches that run power. I mean that's if I mean you are who you've been formulating now. I've started to evolve. Like I've gotten really into the Brent Dearman stuff lately. Now part of that is I just sat through one of his clinics earlier in the week and it was fantastic. But yeah. I had two final questions for you, and you've kind of hit on this a little bit, but I want to get a little more detail about it. Is what is your typical from a prepping standpoint, and you can get as in depth with this as you want, Sunday through Friday look like? Because you hit on, like you said, Monday's your hard day, more in depth day. So, but what does that kind of process for you look like?
Yeah. So Sunday for us is we grade out our game before, and so all that stuff's going to get graded out. We grade all special teams out together as a staff, which I really like. It puts an emphasis on the special team stuff. And then we team meet and meet with our guys on Sundays so that Monday can be a full game plan deal for us. So Sunday, we're going to wrap up the week before, and then we're going to wrap up all of our breakdown, at least data, that is for the following week. And so that allows us Monday morning to come in, get started, and dive right into the next opponent. And so Monday, we don't have our players. It's their day off. And so as a staff, I mean, we can literally sit through. We have the entire day as a defensive staff to go ahead and break down that week's opponent. But it also starts the scouting report side of it for us. So, it being at a small school, right? Everybody has a piece of the scouting report that we're putting together. Because I want our guys to have the open field base game plan in hand Tuesday morning, because we meet with our guys on Tuesday morning. And so that Monday is our game planning deal. That's when we're doing our whiteboard deal. It's when we're making our checks, we're making our adjustments, we're putting our scouting report together. And then by Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., I want to be able to deliver our guys a scouting report in hand for our install and introduction meeting on Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday are our work days. For us as a staff, Tuesday is getting the cards ready and continuing to break some stuff down. It's become some red zone stuff for us. And then Wednesday, we'll get in hand Wednesday morning. We'll get in hand to our players our red zone checks and adjustments. So that's a separate piece for us, just because as a staff, we're going to take Tuesday to really look at during the day, look at the red zone, look at what we call the orange zone, which is still going in. But for us, we want to break those things down a little bit, differently. And we want to obviously game plan and look at, are they giving us any different formations, especially when you get into, the 0 to 10 goal line stuff. Are they giving you anything formationally that we need to align to, adjust to differently? So we'll look at that as a staff Tuesday, get it on paper and give it to our guys Wednesday morning. Wednesday's another heavy day for our guys as far as practice goes. We use Thursday as really a walkthrough day. And so we walk through all of our special team situation stuff. We walk through some stuff throughout the week that maybe defensively we want to clean up. So I always pick 5 run plays to walk through. I pick 5 pass plays to run through. And then we run through all of our goal line stuff on that Thursday as well that we've looked at. So they've looked at really on Tuesday practice-wise. Sorry, I'm jumping backwards. But Tuesday practice-wise for our guys, we're looking at heavy first and second down. and then we'll get into some third down stuff. Wednesday will become a first, second, third down, and then also a goal line period. And then Thursday, we'll clean some stuff up in the walkthrough. And then Friday for us is an hour shot where we revamp back up. So we're in shells on Friday. So we can actually get some looks. Defensively, we'll go down, we'll hit the red zone heavy. And then in our second team session, we do just a first, second, third, get off the field, get your fist up period. That is really like, I've been places that call it like perfect play and things like that, where we want to be as crisp and clean as we can be to what we think we're going to get. It's we do 9 plays, so it's 3 sets. So we'll do like first and 10, second, whatever, third and whatever. Boom, defense, get your fist up. The ones will run off, the twos will go on. They'll look at the same plays, and then we'll go through that. And so the hope is, right, that you go out there and produce some 3 and outs is the mentality that we're trying to get into our guys right there before we play on Saturday. And that starts it all over again. There are some adjustments in the COVID time period with some of that stuff, but that would be typical week as far as that thing.
Okay. And then last question I got for you. You've already mentioned Coach Vass on this list, but where do you go to study? Who do you study? Is there anybody you personally reach out to? Who are your obviously there's as I kind of mentioned in the Vass, there's 3 main ones, and then there's a pile of extra stuff that maybe sort of fits in certain areas and sort of doesn't. But do you have a preference on whose film do you watch? Who do you talk to? How do you develop?
Yeah. Right now, I mean, it almost feels overwhelming with the amount of football that is out there. And I don't know how you are, but like me with Twitter, man, I have gone down some black holes at night where you're looking at one thing on some guy's page, and then it's like all of a sudden you're like, how the heck did I even freaking get to this? And so what I would say is I try and find similarities in what we're doing and what, I hear other programs may be doing that is similar to what we're doing defensively, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for who we are to go study like a Don Brown because of what he does defensively. It's not going to necessarily mesh up with what we do. Iowa State, because of the 3 high stuff, it has been film that we've watched. Clemson did a little bit of it, and I don't know what his base defense is at Clemson, to be completely honest with you.
He's an old 4-3 guy that's kind of merged it with the 4-2-5 from my understanding, and I will probably get like a bunch of hate comments because that this is wrong in the bio, which is fine. That's whatever. But my understanding, because I've looked a little bit, and I love Brent Venables because he's an old 4-3 guy who's now like mixed it with the 4-2-5, like pretty much that one of those 3 backers has pretty much become like a safety hybrid kid from my understanding. I could be completely wrong, and somebody's going to destroy me in the comments, but whatever.
And so we've studied some Clemson stuff, 4-2-5 wise. I love looking at some Northwestern film. We did that 2 years ago, and some of the things that they were doing. So trying to find schools that are doing some similar things to what we're doing, and to see how can we coach it better, how can we do it better. Is there a technique? A lot of times it's not necessarily the X's and O's. And I know you've asked some game planning questions to some other coaches as well. Like for me, in a coordinator role, like a lot of times I get almost more interested in the game planning, how people are attacking certain formations, and trying to look at some of that stuff, and looking at, the why of a lot of these things, and then seeing technique wise, what do we need to clean up from what we're doing, and what information can we go get. And so our coaches, right, our assistants, it's the same thing with them. If they want to change the way defensive line, for example, if they want to change our stance defensive line wise because they see a clinic or something like that, I always challenge them to, okay, I need to see film on it. I need to see how it's going to make us better. I want to see why you don't like what our guys are doing right now. Like, don't just say that you want to do it because you saw, Alabama do it or Georgia do it or somebody like that. Like, I love where I'm at. I'm a Bluffton University graduate myself, but we ain't got the same dudes as those guys. So we got to make sure we're doing things that's going to mesh it and fit into what we're doing, right? Schematically. Everything looks good on paper, but it's got to fit within your scheme, within your philosophy. But those are some match quarters. I love getting on match quarters and looking at the stuff there. Like I told you earlier, I listen to Coach Vasta's stuff every week and try and grab bits and pieces of that stuff. Your page has been an awesome resource, and I'm not just saying that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
It's not paying me to say that, but there's been a lot of great stuff. Like I'm not even we don't do any of the Ripple as match, but I listened to Coach Puckett, a good buddy of mine, coach for Coach Puckett, and man, that was a great presentation to be able to learn just more about it defensively. And then I think as a defensive guy, and a lot of coaches say this, but you got to study offense too, because especially in the off season, because we got to know how are they trying to attack certain things. Brent Dearborn's a great example. He's a great one to listen to as far as the 3 high stuff goes, because he coached at Kansas and he had to play against it a lot, and so he had to game plan against it. And so just listen to tidbits as far as the offensive goes. I pick our O-line coach's mind a lot as well. We got a great young offensive line coach, and so what fronts give those guys troubles and things like that. I think clinicking from your own staff is probably the least, I don't want to say like least valued thing, but we all go to all of these different places, and it's like, hey, you got a coach right in the next office. Like, let's go clinic with him.
I get you, Coach, and Coach Dearman made that comment about how he intentionally overheard conversations on his former staff and would put in stuff the next day just to mess with them because he overheard how they were talking. So it's stuff like that that's funny. So well, I think that's a good place to end. Coaches, make sure you check out the sponsors affiliates below. Coaches' contact information will be below. Reach out to them, give them a follow on Twitter, shoot him an email. If you want to hear his 3 high safety, whether it's his original video, which kind of gives us a good overview of his 3 high safety stuff, or the run fit portion, which he came back on for a second round, that is it. Those links will be below as well. If you want to find more stuff from him, I know he did stuff for, again, the Michigan State Clinic, Ohio's State Clinic, and then he's got various other podcasts he's been on as well. So make sure you Google and look up that. And then obviously, if you got any kids that want to go Bluffton, reach out to coaches. I know they have a good wide area. They have a good staff over there, and they're doing a good job. Thank you. And then that was another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.